At my parents' house, my 6-year-old daughter was playing outside, and suddenly I heard a bang. As soon as I went out to check, my sister had almost run over my daughter. My sister angrily got out of the car and started dragging my daughter as she was unconscious out of the way while shouting at me, "Keep your brat out of my way, look what she did to my car." When I went to check on my daughter, my parents ran up to my sister and said, "Honey, what happened? Why are you so upset?" While my mother looked at me disgustedly, "Look at what your daughter did, please go away." While my sister, still angry, began coming towards me, before she started hitting me, my husband came outside, and what he saw about my daughter, he began something which I wasn't expecting. My name is Corey, and this is the story of how my world turned upside down in a matter of minutes, and how my husband Quinn showed me what real family loyalty looks like. To understand the full scope of what happened, I need to give you some background about my family dynamics. My sister Serena has always been the golden child. She's 2 years older than me, and from the moment she was born, my parents treated her like she could do no wrong. Growing up, I was constantly compared to her. Serena got better grades, Serena was more social, Serena was more successful. When she became a lawyer at a prestigious firm, my parents practically threw a parade. When I became a nurse, they barely acknowledged it. The favoritism only got worse after I got married to Quinn and had my daughter Zara. My parents would constantly make snide comments about how I was settling for a middle-class life while Serena was climbing the corporate ladder. Serena herself wasn't much better. She'd make passive-aggressive comments about my simple lifestyle and how she was too busy with her important career to think about having kids yet. But Zara, my beautiful 6-year-old daughter, was the light of my life. She had these bright green eyes and curly blonde hair and the most infectious laugh you'd ever hear. She was curious about everything, always asking questions and exploring the world around her. Quinn and I adored her, and we tried our best to shield her from my family's toxic behavior. The day everything changed started like any other weekend visit to my parents' house. Quinn, Zara, and I had driven over for what was supposed to be a nice family lunch. My parents lived in a large suburban home with a circular driveway and a big front yard where Zara loved to play. She had brought her favorite soccer ball and was kicking it around on the grass while Quinn and I sat on the front porch, watching her and chatting with my dad about work. My mom was inside preparing lunch, and we were expecting Serena to arrive at any minute. She'd been running late, as usual, probably caught up with some work crisis that she deemed more important than family time. This wasn't unusual. Serena had a habit of making dramatic entrances and expecting everyone to rearrange their schedules around her. Zara was having such a good time playing. She discovered a butterfly and was trying to follow it around the yard, her little legs pumping as she chased it in circles. The butterfly led her closer to the driveway, but she was still well within the boundaries of the front yard, nowhere near where cars would normally drive. That's when we heard the screech of tires and the sickening sound of metal hitting something solid. I jumped up from my chair so fast that I knocked over my iced tea. My heart was already pounding as I ran toward the driveway, and what I saw will be burned into my memory forever. Serena's black BMW was stopped at an odd angle in the driveway, the front bumper dented. And there, lying motionless on the ground beside the car, was my Zara. "Zara!" I screamed, rushing toward my daughter. But before I could reach her, Serena was already getting out of her car, and she was furious. "Are you kidding me right now?" she shouted, slamming her car door so hard the whole vehicle shook. "Keep your brat out of my way. Look what she did to my car." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My daughter was lying unconscious on the ground, possibly seriously injured, and Serena was worried about her car. But what happened next was even worse. Instead of checking on Zara, Serena grabbed my unconscious daughter by the arm and started dragging her away from her precious BMW. Zara's little body was limp, her head lolling to the side, and Serena was treating her like a piece of trash to be moved out of the way. "Don't touch her!" I screamed, finally reaching them and dropping to my knees beside Zara. Her breathing was shallow but steady, and I could see a nasty bump forming on her forehead. There was a small cut on her cheek that was bleeding, and her left arm was bent at an odd angle. That's when my parents came running out of the house. But instead of rushing to help their injured granddaughter, they ran straight to Serena. "Honey, what happened? Why are you so upset?" my dad asked, putting his arm around Serena's shoulders. My mother looked down at me kneeling beside Zara, and the expression on her face was one of pure disgust. "Look at what your daughter did," she said to me with venom in her voice. "Please go away." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My 6-year-old daughter was hurt, possibly seriously, and my own mother was telling me to go away because I was somehow inconveniencing my sister. "She needs an ambulance," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I checked Zara's pulse. She might have a concussion, and I think her arm is broken. Oh, please, Serena scoffed. She's fine. Kids bounce. But look at my car. Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost to fix? I have a client meeting tomorrow, and now I have to deal with this mess. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My sister had hit my daughter with her car, and she was treating it like Zara had done something wrong. The worst part was that my parents were nodding along, as if Serena's concerns were completely reasonable. Serena's right, my mother said, crossing her arms. Zara shouldn't have been playing so close to the driveway. This is your fault for not watching her properly. I felt tears streaming down my face as I held Zara's small hand. This couldn't be happening. My own family was blaming me and my injured daughter for an accident that was clearly Serena's fault. She had been driving too fast and not paying attention, probably texting or talking on her phone as usual. Serena started walking toward me, her face twisted with anger. I should sue you for the damage to my car, she said. Do you know how much that BMW cost? More than your husband makes in a year, I'm sure. She was getting closer, her fists clenched, and I could see that she was working herself up to actually hit me. I couldn't move because I was afraid to leave Zara, who was still unconscious but starting to stir slightly. That's when Quinn came around the corner of the house, probably wondering what all the shouting was about. He took one look at the scene, me crying over our unconscious daughter, Serena advancing on me with violent intent, and my parents standing there doing nothing to help, and something in him snapped. Quinn is usually the calmest person I know. In our 8 years of marriage, I'd seen him truly angry maybe twice. He's a software engineer, quiet and thoughtful, the type of person who thinks through problems logically rather than reacting emotionally. But when he saw Zara lying there hurt, something primal took over. He didn't say a word. He just walked straight to Serena, grabbed her by the shoulders, and physically moved her away from Zara and me. Then he knelt down beside our daughter and began examining her injuries with the calm efficiency of someone who'd taken first aid classes. Call 911, he said quietly, but there was steel in his voice. Now. There's no need for that, my father said. She's probably just shaken up. Quinn looked up at him with an expression I'd never seen before. My daughter has been hit by a car and is unconscious. We're calling an ambulance. If you have a problem with that, you can explain it to the police when they get here. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911 while continuing to monitor Zara's breathing and pulse. I could hear him giving the dispatcher our location and describing Zara's condition in clear, medical terms. Meanwhile, Serena was having a complete meltdown. This is ridiculous. She screamed. I'm not paying for an ambulance because your kid can't stay out of the way. That's when Quinn stood up and faced my family. What he said next changed everything. Let me make something very clear, he said, his voice deadly quiet. My daughter was playing in the front yard when Serena came speeding up the driveway without looking where she was going. She hit Zara with her car, then dragged an unconscious child away from her vehicle while screaming about property damage. Instead of helping their injured granddaughter, you two immediately took Serena's side and told my wife to go away. This is going to stop. Right now. Now wait just a minute, my father started, but Quinn held up a hand. No, you wait. I've been watching this family treat Corey and Zara like second-class citizens for years, and I've stayed quiet because Corey asked me to keep the peace. But this crosses a line that can never be uncrossed. Your daughter hit my child with her car and showed no concern for her welfare. You two backed her up instead of helping your granddaughter. That makes you all equally responsible in my eyes. Serena laughed, actually laughed. Are you seriously going to lecture us? You're just some tech guy who works from home in his pajamas. I'm a successful attorney. I know my rights, and I know that accidents happen. Zara is fine, and you're all overreacting. Quinn looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. You're absolutely right about one thing, Serena. You are a lawyer, so you should understand the legal implications of what just happened here. Let me break it down for you. He pulled out his phone again and started taking pictures of Zara's injuries, of the dent in Serena's car, of the skid marks on the driveway. Then he walked over to the house and pointed his phone at something my parents had installed the previous year after some break-ins in the neighborhood. See that? He said, indicating the small security camera mounted under the eaves of the house. Your parents' security system has been recording everything. We have video evidence of you driving recklessly, hitting Zara, dragging her unconscious body, and showing no concern for her welfare. We also have audio of you blaming a 6-year-old child for your negligence and threatening to sue her parents. My father's face went pale. Now, Quinn, Let's not blow this out of proportion. I'm just getting started, Quinn said calmly. Serena, as a lawyer, you should know that what you've done constitutes vehicular assault on a minor. The fact that you then physically moved an unconscious child with potential spinal injuries could be considered aggravated assault. Your complete lack of remorse and your threats to sue the victims will play very well in court, I'm sure. Serena's confident expression was starting to crack. You're bluffing. It was an accident. Was it? Quinn asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were driving too fast, not paying attention, and now you're trying to blame a 6-year-old for your mistakes. But hey, let's let a jury decide. I'm sure your law firm will love the publicity when this hits the local news. The ambulance arrived then, and the EMTs immediately took over Zara's care. She was conscious now but groggy and crying for me. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, one of the EMTs confirmed what I'd suspected: she had a concussion and a broken arm, along with various cuts and bruises. They said we'd caught it in time, but that another few minutes could have made a difference if she'd had internal bleeding. Quinn rode with Zara in the ambulance while I followed in our car. As we were leaving, I could see my parents and Serena arguing in the driveway, probably trying to figure out how to spin the situation in their favor. At the hospital, Zara was treated by Dr. Violet Park and her wonderful pediatric team. The concussion was mild, and her arm would heal completely, but she'd need to wear a cast for 6 weeks and undergo some physical therapy. Dr. Park said she was very lucky. A few inches to the right and Serena's car could have caused much more serious injuries. While Zara was being treated, Quinn was on his phone, making calls. I assumed he was calling his work to let them know he'd be missing some time, but I was wrong. When he hung up, he had that same determined expression he'd worn at my parents' house. I've been in touch with a lawyer, he said. We're going to file both criminal and civil charges against Serena. The lawyer says we have an excellent case for vehicular assault, child endangerment, and assault on a minor for the way she dragged Zara while she was unconscious. I felt a mix of relief and terror. Are you sure? I mean, she is my sister, and my parents. Corey, Quinn said, taking my hands in his. Your sister hit our daughter with a car and then physically assaulted her while she was unconscious. Your parents took her side and told you to go away while Zara was hurt. These people are not your family in any way that matters. We are your family. Zara is your family. And we protect our family. Over the next few days, while Zara recovered at home, things moved quickly. The police reviewed the security footage from my parents' house and agreed that Serena had been driving recklessly. They also interviewed several neighbors who had witnessed the incident and Serena's behavior afterward. The charges were filed within a week. Serena was arrested at her law firm, which made the local news exactly as Quinn had predicted. The footage of her dragging an unconscious child away from her car while screaming about property damage went viral on social media, and her law firm placed her on unpaid leave pending the outcome of the case. My parents called constantly, begging me to drop the charges and work things out as a family. They offered to pay for Zara's medical bills if we'd just let it go. When I refused, they got angry and accused me of trying to destroy Serena's career over an accident. That's when I learned something that made everything even worse. While going through Serena's phone records as part of the discovery process, the lawyers found out that she had been texting while driving that day. Not only had she been distracted when she hit Zara, but she'd been breaking the law. The text she'd been sending when she struck my daughter? Running late as usual. These family things are so boring. Meanwhile, the investigation into the incident was revealing more disturbing details about Serena's behavior pattern. The police detective assigned to our case, Detective Walsh, was thorough and compassionate. She had children of her own and was visibly disgusted when she reviewed the security footage. In 20 years of police work, I've never seen anything quite like this, she told Quinn and me during one of our meetings. Most people who accidentally hit a child are devastated and immediately call for help. Your sister's reaction was unprecedented. Detective Walsh had interviewed several of Serena's colleagues and discovered a pattern of reckless driving and aggressive behavior. Apparently, Serena had been involved in 3 previous traffic incidents in the past 2 years, all involving her speeding or driving aggressively in parking lots. None had resulted in injuries, so she just paid the fines and moved on, but it established a pattern of dangerous behavior. Even more damning was what we learned about Serena's financial situation. Despite her high-paying job and successful image, she was drowning in debt. She'd been living well beyond her means for years, trying to maintain an expensive lifestyle that included the BMW, a luxury apartment, designer clothes, and frequent expensive vacations that she posted about constantly on social media. The BMW that hit Zara? It was leased, and Serena was already 3 months behind on payments. She'd been desperately trying to avoid having it repossessed, which explained her panic about the damage. Her entire identity was built around appearing successful and wealthy, and losing the car would have shattered that illusion. This information came out during the depositions for the civil case. Serena's lawyer tried to object to questions about her finances, but the judge ruled that her financial stress was relevant to her state of mind during the incident. Watching Serena squirm as her carefully constructed facade crumbled was almost as satisfying as seeing her led away in handcuffs. The depositions themselves were revealing in ways I hadn't expected. Serena, under oath, was forced to admit that she had been texting while driving. She'd also had to acknowledge that she hadn't looked where she was going when she turned into the driveway, and that she had grabbed Zara while the child was unconscious without checking for spinal injuries. But what really showed her true character was when our lawyer asked her about her concerns for Zara's welfare after the accident. "Were you worried about the child's injuries?" our attorney asked. "I assumed she was fine," Serena replied coldly. "Children are resilient." "Did you check her pulse or breathing?" "That's not my responsibility." "Did you call 911? "I didn't see the need to overreact." "What was your primary concern at the scene?" Serena hesitated, knowing how her answer would sound. "The damage to my vehicle?" Even her own lawyer looked uncomfortable with that response. The court reporter was typing furiously, and I could see the judge taking notes. This testimony would be used in both the criminal case and the civil settlement negotiations. My parents' depositions were equally damaging to their case. Under oath, they had to admit that they had immediately gone to comfort Serena instead of checking on their injured granddaughter. They tried to claim they were in shock and not thinking clearly, but the video evidence showed them calmly walking past Zara to reach Serena. When asked why my mother had told me to go away while Zara was unconscious, she claimed she didn't remember saying that. But of course, it was all captured on audio by the security system. "Mrs. Fletcher," our lawyer said to my mother, "are you saying you don't remember telling your daughter to leave while your 6-year-old granddaughter was lying injured on the ground?" "I was upset," my mother replied weakly. "I might have said things I didn't mean." "According to the audio recording, your exact words were 'Look at what your daughter did, please go away.' Does that sound like something you might say to a mother whose child had just been hit by a car?" My mother started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of self-pity because she was being held accountable for her actions. I felt no sympathy for her whatsoever. The most devastating part of my father's deposition came when he was asked about his relationship with Zara before the accident. "Would you say you treated both your granddaughter and your daughter Serena equally?" our lawyer asked. "I try to be fair to everyone," my father replied. "But Serena doesn't have children, does she?" "No. So when I ask about treating them equally, I'm asking whether you treated your granddaughter Zara with the same care and attention you showed your daughter Serena." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Serena is very successful. She has important responsibilities." "That wasn't my question, Mr. Fletcher. Did you treat 6-year-old Zara with the same consideration you showed adult Serena?" The silence stretched on for almost a full minute before my father finally answered. Serena's needs were more complex. It was a telling admission. Even under oath, he couldn't bring himself to say that he loved his granddaughter as much as his adult daughter. The court reporter captured every painful second of his hesitation. During the legal proceedings, which stretched over several months, the media attention became overwhelming. The security footage had been released to the media as part of the public court records after the criminal charges were filed, and it went viral within days. People were outraged not just by Serena's actions, but by my parents' response to the situation. Local news stations picked up the story, then national outlets. Soon I was getting calls from producers wanting to interview me for television segments about toxic family dynamics and child safety. The story had struck a nerve with people who had experienced similar treatment from their own families. I decided to do a few interviews, partly because I wanted people to understand what had really happened, and partly because I hoped it might help other people in similar situations feel less alone. Quinn was supportive but worried about the additional stress on Zara and me. The first interview I did was with a local news station. The anchor, Patricia Williams, was a mother herself and approached the story with genuine concern and professionalism. She asked thoughtful questions about the family dynamics leading up to the incident and my decision to press charges. "Some people might say you should forgive family and move on," Patricia said during the interview. "What would you say to them?" "I would say that forgiveness doesn't mean putting your child in danger again," I replied. "My daughter could have been killed that day. The people who were supposed to protect her instead blamed her for getting in the way. That's not the kind of family environment I want her growing up in. The interview aired during the evening news and was shared widely on social media. The response was overwhelmingly supportive, with hundreds of people commenting about their own experiences with toxic family members and praising me for putting Zara's safety first. But not all the attention was positive. Serena's friends and some family members started a whisper campaign, claiming I was destroying the family for money and blowing things out of proportion. They painted Serena as the victim of a vindictive sister who was jealous of her success. Some of these people even contacted my workplace, trying to get me fired from my nursing job. They claimed I was unstable and vindictive and couldn't be trusted to care for patients. Fortunately, my supervisors knew me well and dismissed these complaints, but it was still stressful to deal with. The worst was when someone posted our new address online, along with photos of Zara from my old social media accounts. I'd made all my profiles private after the incident, but some of the photos were still cached on other sites. We started getting drive-by harassment, with people shouting at us from cars and leaving nasty notes on our door. Quinn handled the harassment by installing a comprehensive security system at our current house and contacting the police. He also hired a lawyer who specialized in online harassment to get the doxing posts removed and pursue charges against the people making threats. This proves we made the right decision, he told me one evening as we watched the security monitors show another car driving slowly past our house. These are the same people who think Serena did nothing wrong. They're showing us exactly what kind of family values they really have. We accelerated our house hunting and found a place in a different school district about 40 minutes away. The move was emotional for all of us. We'd lived in our old house since Zara was a baby, and it held so many good memories. But it also held the memory of that terrible phone call from the hospital, and the weeks of anxiety and legal stress that followed. Our new house was smaller than our old house but had a big backyard where Zara could play safely, far from any driveways or busy streets. Quinn set up his home office in the spare bedroom, and I was able to transfer to a hospital closer to our new location. Dr. Park helped coordinate Zara's medical records transfer to a pediatrician near our new home. During this time, Zara was struggling with the public attention and we knew we needed to make some changes for her well-being. We began looking at houses in other school districts, knowing that eventually we might need to move to give Zara a fresh start where nobody knew about the accident. The move came sooner than expected when someone from Serena's social circle posted our address online, along with photos they'd found on some old social media posts of mine from before I'd made all my accounts private after the incident. We started getting drive-by harassment, with people shouting at us from cars and leaving nasty notes on our door. Zara's first day at the new school was nerve-wracking for all of us. We told the principal and her teacher about what had happened, without going into too much detail, so they could be alert to any signs that she was struggling. But Zara surprised us with her resilience. She made friends quickly and seemed to thrive in the new environment. "I like it here," she told us after her first week. "Nobody asks me scary questions, and my teacher is really nice." It was around this time that the civil case was finally approaching settlement. Serena's insurance company had been fighting the claim initially, but the evidence was so overwhelming that their lawyers advised them to settle before it went to trial. The viral video had made Serena such a liability that they wanted the case resolved as quickly as possible. The settlement negotiations were handled mostly by our lawyers, but Quinn and I had to approve the final terms. The amount was substantial enough to pay for Zara's ongoing therapy, cover all her medical expenses, and fund her education through college. There was also a provision requiring Serena to issue a public apology, though we knew it would likely be hollow. Serena also had to agree to have no contact with Zara or me for a minimum of 5 years, with the possibility of supervised contact after that only if a family therapist deemed it safe. Quinn wasn't included in the no-contact order because he'd insisted on the right to decide for himself whether he ever wanted to see Serena again. His exact words to the lawyer were, "I want the option to tell her exactly what I think of her if I ever see her in person again." The criminal case went to trial about a year after the incident. I had to testify, which was one of the most difficult things I'd ever done. Serena sat at the defendant's table looking appropriately remorseful for the jury, but I could see the anger in her eyes when she looked at me. The prosecutor was excellent. She walked the jury through the security footage, played the audio of Serena screaming about her car while Zara lay unconscious, and showed the text messages proving Serena had been distracted while driving. The evidence was so clear-cut that the defense couldn't really dispute what had happened, so they focused on trying to minimize the charges. Serena's lawyer argued that it was a tragic accident, and that Serena had shown poor judgment in the heat of the moment but didn't deserve jail time. He painted her as a successful professional whose career would be ruined by a felony conviction. But the prosecutor countered by showing Serena's pattern of reckless driving and her complete lack of remorse. She also brought in expert testimony about the danger of moving an unconscious child with potential spinal injuries, emphasizing that Serena's actions could have paralyzed or killed Zara. The most powerful testimony came from Dr. Violet Park, the emergency room physician who had treated Zara the day of the accident. Dr. Park explained that Zara's injuries could have been much worse if she'd been moved improperly, and that Serena's decision to drag her away from the car had put Zara at significant additional risk. In my professional opinion, Dr. Park told the jury, the defendant's actions after the collision were extremely dangerous. Moving an unconscious child with a potential head injury without proper medical training could have worsened her condition significantly or caused additional trauma. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all charges. Serena was convicted of vehicular assault and child endangerment, exactly as the prosecutor had requested. When the verdict was read, I saw her shoulders shake with sobs, but I felt no satisfaction. I just felt tired and ready for it all to be over. At sentencing, both sides were allowed to make statements. Our lawyer read a victim impact statement that Quinn and I had written together, describing the ongoing effects of Serena's actions on Zara and our family. We talked about Zara's nightmares, her anxiety around cars, and the way the incident had forced us to uproot our lives and move to a new community. Serena's lawyer read a prepared statement supposedly from Serena herself, expressing remorse and asking for leniency. But when the judge asked Serena if she wanted to address the court personally, she declined. Even at sentencing, she couldn't bring herself to apologize directly to Zara or to me. The judge, Judge Newman, was a mother of 3 herself and was clearly disgusted by Serena's behavior. When she announced the sentence, 6 months in jail, 2 years probation, anger management classes, and community service at a children's hospital, she made it clear that she considered Serena's actions particularly egregious. The defendant struck a child with her vehicle due to her own negligence, Judge Newman said. Rather than showing concern for the child's welfare, she prioritized property damage and then physically moved an injured, unconscious child without regard for the potential consequences. This court finds such behavior particularly troubling from someone in the legal profession, who should understand the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions. Serena's law license suspension came several months later, after the State Bar completed their review of her conviction. The Bar Association issued a statement saying that her actions were incompatible with the ethical standards expected of licensed attorneys and that her license would remain suspended pending completion of her sentence and additional counseling requirements. But the most satisfying part of the whole ordeal wasn't the legal victory, it was watching my family's reaction to the consequences of their choices. When the story went viral, my parents became social pariahs in their community. Their friends and neighbors saw the security footage of them ignoring their injured granddaughter to comfort the person who had hurt her. My mother was asked to step down from her position on the hospital charity board, and my father lost several clients who didn't want to be associated with a family who'd chosen their successful daughter over their injured grandchild. The worst part for them was probably the interviews I gave to local news stations. I told the truth about the years of favoritism, the way they treated Zara as less important than Serena's career, and how they'd literally told me to go away while my daughter was unconscious on the ground. They chose appearances over their granddaughter's safety, I said in one interview. They taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up for you when you need them most. My husband showed up. They didn't. The story resonated with a lot of people who had experienced similar family dynamics. I received hundreds of messages from people sharing their own stories of toxic family relationships and thanking me for speaking out. My parents tried to reconcile several months later, claiming they had made a mistake and wanted to move forward as a family. They offered to cut Serena out of their lives if I would just bring Zara around for visits again. I told them that the problem wasn't Serena, it was them. They had shown their true colors in a moment of crisis, and I couldn't trust them around my daughter anymore. If they could choose Serena's car over Zara's safety once, they could do it again. Zara recovered beautifully from her physical injuries, but the emotional healing took longer. She had nightmares for months and became very anxious around cars and driveways. We got her into therapy with a child psychologist who specialized in trauma, and slowly she began to feel safe again. The therapist helped us understand that Zara had been affected not just by the accident itself, but by witnessing her own extended family's complete lack of concern for her well-being. She'd heard her grandmother tell me to go away while she was hurt, and that had confused and frightened her more than the physical pain. Why didn't Grandma and Grandpa care that I was hurt? She asked me one day while we were coloring together. I struggle to find an age-appropriate way to explain that sometimes people make very bad choices, and that those choices can hurt the people we love. I told her that her daddy and I would always protect her and care about her safety above everything else. Quinn continued to be my rock through all of this. He never once suggested that maybe we should have handled things differently or tried to preserve relationships with my family. He was completely focused on Zara's recovery and our family's well-being. "I married you, not them," he told me when I worried that I was asking too much of him. "Zara is our priority. Everything else is just noise." The legal proceedings dragged on for over a year, but eventually everything was settled. Serena served her jail time and completed her community service. Her law license was ultimately reinstated after she went through extensive counseling and anger management, but her reputation never fully recovered. The video of her dragging Zara away from her car while screaming about property damage had been seen by millions of people, and it followed her wherever she went. She moved to another state to try for a fresh start, but I heard through mutual acquaintances that she struggled to find work at any reputable law firm. The background checks always turned up the assault conviction and the viral video. My parents eventually stopped trying to contact us after about 2 years. I think they realized that their actions had consequences they couldn't smooth over with money or manipulation. They'd chosen Serena over Zara in a moment when it really mattered, and that choice cost them their relationship with their son-in-law and granddaughter permanently. The settlement money was invested wisely. Most went into a trust fund for Zara's education and future needs, while we used a portion to cover the costs of our move, the security upgrades, and Zara's ongoing therapy. Quinn and I were careful not to let the money change our lifestyle significantly. We wanted Zara to grow up with the same values we'd always taught her. Looking back now, 4 years later, I can see that the accident was actually a blessing in disguise. It forced me to confront the toxic dynamics in my family and make a choice about what kind of people I wanted in Zara's life. It showed me that Quinn truly understood what it meant to be a husband and father, not just in the good times, but when everything was falling apart. Most importantly, it taught Zara early in life that she deserves to be treated with respect and care, and that anyone who doesn't treat her well doesn't deserve a place in her life, regardless of their relationship to her. Zara is 10 now, and she barely remembers my parents or Serena. When she asks about them, I tell her honestly that they were people who made bad choices and couldn't be trusted to keep her safe. She accepts this explanation without much question. Kids are remarkably good at understanding when adults are telling them the truth. She adores Quinn, who she calls the best daddy in the whole world. He coaches her soccer team and helps her with homework and makes her laugh every single day. She has a strong sense of security and self-worth that I never had growing up, because she's surrounded by people who genuinely love and value her. As for me, I've learned that family is something you choose, not something you're born into. The people who show up for you in your darkest moments, who protect you and support you unconditionally, those are your real family. Blood relationships mean nothing if they're not backed up by love and loyalty. Quinn showed me what real love looks like that day when he saw Zara lying unconscious and immediately sprang into action to protect us both. He didn't hesitate to take on my entire family when they failed us. He didn't ask me to choose between him and them. He simply made it clear that our little family unit was his priority, and he was willing to fight for us. Sometimes people ask if I regret pressing charges against Serena or cutting off my parents. The answer is absolutely not. They showed me who they really were, and I believed them. Zara deserved better than people who would sacrifice her safety for appearances, and Quinn deserved better than in-laws who treated his wife and daughter as lesser than. We built our own family traditions and support systems. Zara's life is filled with people who celebrate her achievements, comfort her when she's hurt, and put her well-being above everything else. She has friends, teachers, coaches, and neighbors who care about her genuinely. She doesn't need grandparents and an aunt who see her as an inconvenience. The story of that terrible day has been told and retold many times now, in news articles and social media posts and court documents. But for me, it's not really about the drama or the revenge or the viral video. It's about the moment when my husband looked at our injured daughter and decided that protecting her was worth any amount of conflict or consequences. That's when I knew for certain that we were going to be okay. We had each other, and that was enough.